Welcome to the podcast where relationships, confidence, and determination all converge into an amazing, heartfelt experience. This is Speaking from the Heart.
Welcome back to episode number 50 of Speaking from the Heart. Today, I hope that you're stretching your imagination and even your childhood for that matter, because we're going to talk about the gift that you have to give to this world that you didn't even realize that you still had inside of you. And I love that we're going to talk about this subject because it reminds me so much of my childhood. And especially since this episode is airing on Halloween, for all my United States folks, happy Halloween. And as we were even kids growing up, I remember dressing up into one of my favorite costumes, whether that was being a ghost, whether that was being a ninja, whether that was being a warrior. Those were the things in which we were able to stretch our imaginations into a wide variety of different things. And I think that even for this concept that we're talking about today, about exploring our hidden gifts, most of those gifts were already realized when we were a child, and now we're going back in time to unleash those gifts into the present. Now, I know that for many of us, you might be thinking, I didn't have this opportunity growing up, Josh, and I'm not sure why you're getting this idea that many things started in childhood, but for me, it only started in the last 5, 10, 15 years of my life, and that's why I've been able to do what I have been able to do today because of those motivations, those aspirations, those things that excite us. But I would like to challenge the fact that maybe you are thinking about this wrong. Maybe you are actually thinking about the fact that you had this idea way back when, and you just never realized that it would come to full fruition until this very moment. I have often talked about on this show about my personal experiences, not only with my grandfather when he was alive, but also the fact that I had different ideas of what that would be when I was able to figure out what kind of career I wanted to have. Not only did it include the things in which I needed to work on, especially in education, and even the training that would be needed to eventually get into the type of work that I do now, but ideally, one of the things that have been really the most awesome of experiences is being able to live in an opportunity every time that it came up. Meaning, when I had things such as being able to work in Washington, D.C. in my college days, being an intern at the Department of Justice, those were experiences in which I started to learn and grow into really what my idea of a career would be. I thought I would be a lawyer. It didn't happen. I thought I'd be a medical doctor. That's what my step-grandfather said. That didn't happen. But yet, at the same time, when those things didn't happen, a new reality was born. And every time that we think about this new idea about the things that we can do can help us get to that next level, the things that we continuously push into that direction, we are actually letting go of a little bit of maybe what that idea of what we were supposed to do or what we were supposed to be actually coming to fruition. I feel that when we're faced with a choice of being able to not use our gifts or to use our gifts, we are often stuck in the middle, which means we are underutilizing our true talents. Embracing what we actually have in this world and what we have as gifts often means taking a big examination of all the different life experiences that we have in our lives. And we often overcomplicate things, thinking that we have to do this and that and this and that in order to get to where we ultimately need to be. But I think that we often mistaken the fact that it takes so many hundreds of thousands of dollars, so many thousands of hours to get to where we need to be. I think for the sake of this conversation, we have to think about the fact that we, as society, often dictate what we want people to do, what we often want others to think about what we should be doing, but at the same token, we're not realizing what our true potential is. I think that we need to keep asking ourselves this question. How do we re-embrace those gifts to realize what we're truly capable of doing in this world? I think that's always the time-tested question because we're always pivoting into another direction. We're always trying to figure out what that next big adventure will be. We're always listening to what other societal members, our family, our friends, our coworkers, our bosses, are always saying that we need to do it in order to have the latest training. Not to knock on it, but diversity, equity, and inclusion are some of those subjects that have often been the catalyst for jumpstarting some of those conversations about how we can be a more friendly workforce while respecting the differences that are involved with each other. I'm not discrediting that movement, and by all means, I advocate, and especially on Speaking from the Heart, about all those diverse viewpoints and what we can do to be able to create some of those best versions of ourselves. But I often have to say that when we are talking about subjects like this, we cannot stop at just what is on the surface. There are obviously motivations and there's strengths and there's reasons as to why we keep pushing forward, why we keep saying to ourselves that we need to keep doing the things that we need to do in order to change the course or direction of our lives. But the problem with all of that is that every time that we take that step into another direction, we often lose a little bit of our own humanity. In other words, we lose a little bit of that childhood magical dream that we had growing up. I remember spending a lot of time at my parents' place, which even if my mom is listening to this episode, she probably had no idea what the heck I was doing, especially at night. But we had this big open landscape in the backyard. And as a kid, I would walk outside the back porch, walk into the middle of the field knowing that there was a bunch of wildlife, and look up to the starry sky above. I was fortunate enough, being that I grew up on a farm, to have a vast amount of countryside to be able to see those bright shining lights. And it would often intrigue my curiosity of seeing what is above us. What actually exists out there in the universe? What are other people doing in this world right now, even as I look at these stars that I have this great opportunity of seeing? Those questions and a lot more often intrigued my imagination, my ability to really think outside the box, to continue pushing forward even when other people thought that maybe I was a little bit crazy to keep pushing forward. But yet, my thinking pattern, which I did not understand at the time, was actually due to the fact that of all these different types of experiences that I was living in my life. But yet, at the same time, I was starting to see that bigger picture by simply walking outside and looking upon the sky and seeing what is truly capable in this world. We have to let our imagination run wild to be able to see the possibilities, especially if we're in this vast open space, which I think for many of us, we often think that we're in this closed, confined space in which we're not able to really punch ourselves out of whatever box we're in, whatever sort of concept that we're completely put into. And I have to say, for the longest period of my life, I felt that way because not only did I feel that other people were saying to me that I wasn't capable of doing that imagination part of my brain, but that I suppressed that feeling, that ability to talk to others, to be able to really say what was on my heart, on my mind, and being able to do the things that I should have been doing at that pivotal stage of life, childhood. Childhood allows us to really experiment and allows us to make mistakes because mistakes should be embraced. Mistakes are not the end-all, be-all of everything that we should be doing in our lives, and it's okay to make a mistake, especially when you're an adult. We often think that as we get older, we have to give up those abilities, that knowledge that we have inside of ourselves to be able to help others to create that best version of ourselves. But I often have to tell even my own self that it's okay to keep on dreaming, that it's okay to go back to childhood and keep on imagining those great ideas that we had. Now, that's all great and everything. That's all peachy-dory, Josh, because I love to do that too. But what does this have to do with setting goals, being able to realize your true potential, to have relationships, confidence, and determination in this ever-changing world? It's really quite simple. If you haven't been looking at your past, to be able to contribute to what is in the present, I don't think you're really living that future that you really wanted to have. It's about combining not just the things that we have done in the past, but it's also about learning what we have done in the present. We have to be able to continuously grow and provide not only the things that we have on the bottom of that food chain, but also get to the top of that food chain as well, which means that we have to keep pushing that boundary line every single time that we feel that we are stuck. Because we have learned something growing up as a kid, which is actually learning how to become not only better for ourselves, not only better for the things that we're going to do in the future, but we were planting the seeds in which they were growing all along. Let's face it, in this world today, we need lighthouses, which I talked about in episode 13, the importance of being able to be that guiding light. But even with that episode, I often think about the fact that we are not shining that light on those big, massive gifts that we have in our lives. And it's often because of not just the things that we've talked about, maybe those distractions, maybe those family obligations, but it's about the fact that we haven't re-embraced what we are. You see, you are that child. You're not just the child in which you are still living in today, but it's still a part of you. And whether you accept that or not, which is a very abstract concept in itself, and I completely understand if you think this is a whole bunch of hogwash. But if you really do believe in having that change happen in your life, you have to look back at what made you in the first place. What really created not just the person that you are, but the person that's going to continue leading a forward-thinking life, to be able to share those awesome gifts that you have inside of you, whether that is writing a book, whether that is starring in a play, whether that is being the CEO of a successful company, whether that is just being a great dad or a great mom. It doesn't matter what the goal is. What it does matter to have, though, is having that voice to embrace those gifts to develop us. Because we are getting older. I'm certainly not getting any younger as I talk about this concept. But sometimes, even as I say this out loud, there are people that are still not embracing that full potential that they should have realized as a kid. And it's not their fault, and neither is it your fault. We often get swept away by the fact that there are many things happening. And there's so many different aspects of our lives that we have to continuously pay attention to. But having that gift that we know that we have embraced so much with in our lives, and that we've allowed ourselves to just roam free of that circle that we've been able to be in for all that time, I feel that we have often lost that ability to not just be in the circle or the square, but to be in the bigger universe that we live in. There are a lot of different perspectives and possibilities to choose from. And no matter what society or even others dictate us to do, we have those gifts in which we are capable of doing. And all it starts is just realizing, where have you started from? And it's not simply about just writing it down, but even speaking out loud. I always have said to myself that I've always had this voice as a kid growing up, always telling me to keep pushing forward, to never give up no matter what, to keep helping others no matter what kinds of circumstances they are living in, and that no matter how I felt about it, they will be able to help themselves get to that next point in their lives. We often overlook that the best work that we have done in our lives have actually been in the early years of our life. And maybe you should be going outside and looking at the stars sometimes, because maybe those answers that you had, especially as a kid, will come flooding back to you. Whether that's old videotapes, old journals of what you've written growing up, even if it is art projects or even written assignments that you did for school. Even if you don't have any of those and you have only the memories that are locked deep inside of you, start exploring who you are, the essence and the inner core of what you were ultimately going to become. Because maybe you have already reached that plateau. but maybe that next plateau is standing above. But I don't like to think of it as just a plateau, but an acceleration curve that you can continue to climb. Because you do have what it takes. Because you have that awesome gift that you were starting to cultivate at a very young age. And even if you did realize it or not, know this. Maybe you're not using it in all the right places, in all the right things that you should be doing. And there are people out there that are willing to help you do that. There are places that you can go that will help you get to that next level. And maybe there are things that you can do to continuously self-improve. But you are worth it. Not just from the fact that you have those gifts, but that you were able to hold on to it for so long. And now, after hearing this episode, you're ready to start that conversation all over again. And I'm cheering you on, knowing that you're going to have that gift that stands out. Whether you are going to be the next president of the United States, or even be the best speaker in the whole entire world that has the most massive following along with the best message. But when you re-embrace yourself, not only are you showing your gifts, but you're showing love in more ways than one. Thanks for listening to episode number 50 of Speaking from the Heart, and I look forward to hearing from your heart very soon.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our podcast and future shows, search for Speaking from the Heart to subscribe and be notified wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit us at www.yourspeakingvoice.biz for more information about potential services that can help you create the best version of yourself. See you next time.